It used a different term. It didn't say Zoom link. It said location link.
Okay.
I got it from Tam's email.
Oh, that's interesting. That's what I tried.
And I was having trouble getting in because it kept saying that there's another meeting in progress.
Okay.
And I was in the process of emailing Kelly and when you came on.
Perfect. Okay. That's kind of what happened for me too.
Yeah, I had one running, but apparently was on a different link. So I think we're in here now. We got folks showing up. That's good. Okay, good.
Ian, can you let us know when we've got a quorum so we can get started?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Kelly, you're very pink today.
So we need 6 for quorum.
I believe that is correct.
Sorry, it's a majority of the board. I don't know how many are on the board.
11.
Wait, no, that's actually our new number, I believe, is 13 with Tamara's resignation, which would actually give us a 7 for tonight. Does that sound right to folks?
I'll take your number.
I think 13 is right.
So we need 7.
All right, so I'm not going to call roll, Zachary, but I will just keep an eye out for 7 against the list of current directors I have.
I think we've got 8, 9 of us here tonight, so I think we're ready to roll. That's what I've got.
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. It's nice to see folks. And my name's Zachary Loritz, and I think I've met most all of you. And I'm going to be chairing tonight's meeting because Tamara won't be with us. And when we get to the agenda section, I'll make a motion to make an adjustment to the new business on the agenda to discuss why she's not here with us and then some next steps of what we're going to do. But before we do that, I'd like to do a quick introduction. And my prompt is if you could share who you are, just your name, and then just a really quick 5-10 seconds favorite spot in Rose City Park that you like to spend some time. And I'll start. So I'm Zachary. There's a little spot on the southeast corner of Rose City Park where there's a whole bunch of old growth evergreens. And if you're there early in the morning, it kind of feels like you're out in the forest, and it's pretty wonderful. I'll pass it off to Sharon.
Sorry about that. I'm Sharon Fuchs. I'm on the Land Use and Transportation Committee. And are you talking about in the neighborhood Rose City Park or just the park?
The neighborhood. Favorite little nook.
The neighborhood. I think the stairs that lead into the park and down to that lower trail is a wild and very peaceful area for me.
Meryl,
and I'll pass it on to Terry.
Oh, there you go, Terry.
Okay, Terry Parker, board member, Land Use Transportation Committee member, and rep to CNN. My favorite spot is my home.
Terry, you took it out of my mouth. Me too. Favorite spot is being at home. Let's go on to Meryl.
Hey, this is Meryl Schneider. My favorite spot is on the bluff. Sunny day, sun rising, Mount Hood view.
Pass it to Kelly.
So my favorite spot is, I'm Kelly Davis. I'm co-chair of the Land Use and Transportation Committee with Tamara, but maybe not. My favorite spot is my little neighborhood street and all the people around it, including Andrew, who lives across the street from me. Andrew, it's your turn.
You're muted, Andrew.
There we go. Yeah, thanks, Kelly. I don't think I quite have a favorite spot. I just love walking all over this neighborhood and all the little quirky lawns and all their quirky little toys.
Who have we got? How about Beth?
Beth Ferris. I would have to say Fraser Park. That's where I always take my dog twice a day, so I love Fraser Park. How about Nick?
Hi, sorry, I'm tardy. What's the question?
What's your favorite spot in the neighborhood?
Everywhere. Sorry.
Holly.
Hi, I'm Holly Hemingway. New to the board, and gosh, it's really hard. We walk all over this neighborhood and beyond. And I think one of the things I love about it is that there are so many other places that we can access from here, and the walkability is just amazing. But I guess if I had to choose, it might be the trail along the golf course, the dirt trail that I can walk along and feel like I'm a little in the woods and hear four every once in a while as the balls come at you. So, but I love it all.
Dawn.
Dan or
Hey.
Dawn, yes.
It's Dan Janes. Hey, it's good to meet you all. This is my first meeting, and I was newly elected recently. Wasn't able to make the prior meeting. I live just north of Sandy Boulevard on 48th, so kind of the western edge of the neighborhood. My favorite spot in the neighborhood, I have to say I'm kind of an architecture nerd, so walking around and just seeing the variety of all the different beautiful historic houses around is my favorite. It's great to be with you
all. Don, haven't heard from you.
Don Levine, board member on the Public Safety Committee. My street, we just had a 4th of July block party yesterday, and everybody turned out and it was great. So that was my favorite place in Rose City Park yesterday.
Denise. Who is muted?
Hi.
Hi.
I joined late. We are saying what our favorite spot is in the neighborhood.
Yes.
So I have lots of favorite spots. I would say my favorite spot is the Holiday House, which is over on 50th and Alameda. If you guys are familiar with it, the gal that decorates every holiday. That's one of my favorite spots right there.
Michelle.
Hi, my favorite spot has got to be just walking along the ridge and looking at the view, or looking at the view out my front room window.
Good. Ian, have we gotten you yet?
No, my name's Ian Davey. I'm secretary on the board, and Sharon sort of stole mine. Mine's a bit more expansive, which is all of the random staircases that feel like accidents of history, but are just like such a lovely component of the neighborhood that most neighborhoods don't have, and which I think is a sort of great lens into the way that things used to be when people walked more. Probably at the time, I wouldn't say before cars took over our world and our built environment, but right at the time that began to happen, when there was still a little appreciation for random thoroughfares between homes. We hear from Michelle.
Yes.
I think we got
How we
Susan.
doing, Zachary? I think we got everybody.
Susan.
Great.
Susan, finish us up.
Oh, hi. Yes. It's a hard thing to come up with one favorite spot, but I do love the bluff, and especially walking the lower trail. It's just like a refreshing course in the middle of a busy day.
That's great. Thank you so much. We have a couple ways that we start our meetings. The first one is a land acknowledgement. I put the link in the chat if you're a visual person and it's better for you to read it, but I'm going to read it. For those of you who want to read it, you can click that link. As a neighborhood, we acknowledge the unceded land we occupy and its original inhabitants, including the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Calumet, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Malala, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River. Currently united as the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, the community includes over 30 tribes and bands from Western Oregon, Northern California, and Southwest Washington. We acknowledge that this land was seized through coercion, dishonesty, and brutality. We acknowledge that the violent history of Euro-American settlement that sought to extinguish Indigenous life from this land. We recognize the enduring influence of that history on our region and nearly 70,000 Native people descendant from over 380 tribes living here today. Many of the major roads in Rose City Park neighborhood connect Chinook villages between three rivers, which white colonizers named the Columbia, the Willamette, and the Sandy, instead of honoring the older names such as the Chewana, which means Great River for the largest river of the three. The second piece of this is we have some neighborhood agreements. Again, in the chat, I put the link if it's easier for you to see. In June of 2021, the RCPNA board adopted the following neighborhood agreements. And we're going to go ahead and just read through them real quick. So we'll take collective and individual ownership. We will center and prioritize the most marginalized voices. We will assume best intentions and we will bring our best intentions. We'll use ouch and oops to identify harms and to swiftly apologize and reply. We will take space and make space, and we will listen for understanding and remain respectfully engaged. We'll deal with issues, not with people. We will be willing to experience discomfort in difficult conversations, and we will expect that difficult issues will not be fixed quickly, but will continue our work to support and engage our neighborhood and related communities. So with that, I want to, one last thing that I put into the chat was a link to tonight's agenda. So if you can follow that, you can follow along what tonight's agenda is. Anything that has Tamara's name on it will be me tonight. And one thing you'll note right at the beginning is the board orientation packet. Those of you who are new, Dan, it's great to see you. We're super happy you're here. You can follow that link, and there's just a number of documents and contact things and dates and meeting times, and you can follow that through. So just want to make sure that that's available to folks and they know where to find it. We need to review and approve the agenda for the board meeting tonight. Again, that link's there. I want to make a motion to, in new business, to add a conversation about the replacement of our RCPNA chair. I'd like to go ahead and put that right after the grievance settlement review. So at 8:05 or whenever we get to it. If you didn't know, Tamara has alerted us this morning that she has decided to step down as chair from this organization, and that was effective immediately. So you'll have to excuse me if I bumble through some things. It's very much a team effort tonight. So if I miss something or you have anything to bring up, please do just jump in and let me know. So if I'd like to make that motion then, so that 8:05, we will have a conversation about the plans to replace the chair, and I'm going to have that led by Ian. He's our secretary, so he holds our bylaws. Anyone have a second for that?
I'll
second that.
Okay, Don too.
All in favor, say aye, or make a motion or say aye.
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 Excellent.
Aye. Who was the second, just for my notes?
Don and Richard.
Who was the first second?
Don.
Thank you.
Levine.
Great.
Hey, Zach.
Yep.
Could you have Sanjeev introduce himself?
Yeah, thanks for giving that. Sanjeev, welcome. We're excited to have you here. Our prompt is, who are you? And then favorite little nook or place you like to visit in our neighborhood.
Yeah, so I guess a little bit about me. I'm Sanjeev. I am actually Kelly's neighbor, live right across the street from him. And it's just me, my partner Roxana, and we just got a 13-week-old Bernedoodle who's, you'll probably see us walking around a bunch. A favorite nook, I think it's probably to one of the food cart pods, either the one by 60th or the one just off Sandy here. Yeah, can't beat food, I think.
Hey, it's great to have you, Sanjeev and Dan. We're excited that you came and were with us tonight and are with us tonight. Any other adjustments to tonight's agenda as people would like to suggest? All right, without hearing anyone like to make a motion?
Move to approve the agenda as stated with the motion and amendment that Zachary made and was passed.
Second.
Those in favor, make the signal, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Anyone opposed? All right, so moved. Our next agenda item is we need to approve 2 sets of meeting minutes. Again, the link to tonight's agenda and then the link to the minutes are in that agenda. So I'm going to let Holly and Ian duke it out for who wants to lead this conversation about approving the minutes from 4/5/22 and 6/7/22.
Yeah, I've got some corrections to the July, or I mean to the June one, several.
Let's hear it.
Well, when you get to it.
Well, Ian or Holly, who would like to take the lead on approving? Let's start with the April ones.
I would suggest Ian take the lead, but I'm happy to take notes with regard to the June.
That works, Holly. So I will say a couple things up front. Wasn't here for those meetings, wasn't on the board in those meetings, and I think that's the case for many folks. But let's start with the first. So we'll take each one in chunks because of that reality. Any discussion on the April meeting minutes? Meryl, go ahead.
And I just reading the bylaws, and the bylaws say the minutes need to list who's present and who's absent. That's not in the April minutes. I'm not sure it's critical, but I think going forward, we would want to do that. And then the bylaws talk about people being removed from the board under certain circumstances. So I think people being absent would have to have the minutes would have to contain some information about did they contact somebody or what. So it's more going forward than.
Yeah,
I'll note that in today's minutes.
It was noted by a former board member that there was no attendance indicated there. And other than that, they looked good to me.
Okay, I'll take a motion for passage.
I'd like to approve the April 5th minutes as amended, which includes adding an attendance as best as we can come up with.
I'll second it.
Okay, so quick point of order on that. My sense is that it will be difficult to amend the attendance retroactively. Impossible for me, I will say. So I heard Meryl is saying, let's be better about getting that going moving forward, which I can totally get behind. Am I also hearing that we need to go back and actually capture that somewhere?
Look at the video. It should be on the video right at the first.
Yeah, that's why I put that in, because we can access the video and I can help you with that, Ian.
Sounds great. And Richard moved. Who was the second?
Me, Terry.
Terry, thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstention? Oh,
Sharon, I'm seeing your hand up. You want to jump in there?
Yeah, I cannot find in the minutes where there was a statement about a comment that I had made, but I want to correct it on the record. It was something to do with 62nd and Sacramento and the inebriated driver who fell asleep. And it said in the minutes, and I can't find it right now, that Sharon said that a car turned upside down on the sidewalk was not an accident. That is not what I said. What I said, and certainly what I intended, was an inebriated driver falling asleep on a street, and then a police officer knocking on the window, startling them so that they gassed the car and jumped the curb and had an incident, was not indication that there was a problem on the street, traffic related. That's what I said, and that's what I intended, but I can't find it for some reason in the minutes now. So it's on the record now, and that's fine with me.
Are you comfortable with us not amending those minutes, but just putting that into the minutes today?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. With that passed, we've got to talk about June's minutes.
Oh, sorry, Zachary, real quick.
Yep.
I wanted to abstain because I wasn't at the April meeting. Any abstentions? Okay, Ian, Holly. Okay, got it.
June's minutes. Ian, you want to take the lead on that one?
Sure.
I can certainly take the lead, Ian. I took those.
I have several corrections for
Best I
that.
Okay.
The first one, and I don't know how the pages are because I printed it out, so I had it here. The first one, when we were talking about the elections, the sentence says, a suggestion that someone outside the current committee be responsible for managing the vote. And outside board members running for a position is what it should say, or something similar to that. Board members on the ballot, officers on the ballot, so that it's separate from the people that are running for an office. That's my first one.
Okay. Yeah, hold on just a second, Terry, so I
Sure.
make sure I get this. And I did go back and listen to the YouTube video, but I may not have caught everything. Okay, go ahead.
The second one was when we were talking about the garage sales. And I made a suggestion that instead of the posters that we have lawn signs similar to the political signs you put in people's yards. And I didn't see that in here at all.
Okay.
And then my third one.
Let me catch up. I'm taking notes by hand here, so.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, got it.
Okay, my third one was when we were talking about sidewalks, and I may have one more. It says Terry reported that they are also crafting a letter to Portland Parks Director Edita Long, and I believe that was Kelly. It was not me.
Oh, okay.
And then the other one that I'm not sure that it's a correction because I'm going on a memory, and I may have said it at the land use meeting, but there was a motion made to end the discussion on the sidewalks because the people weren't there that would be impacted financially. And I didn't see that anywhere here. And I couldn't remember whether it was at the board meeting or at the land use meeting, but I thought it was at the board meeting.
It was, Terry, it was at the land use meeting.
Okay, then forget that. Sorry about that. I honestly couldn't remember. And these were a lot of minutes to go through, and I appreciate that. But anyway, so that's it for me.
Okay, and actually, if I can interject, one request I'll make on behalf of Ian at this point is that it's extremely difficult to know who's talking when you don't have your video on. And even going back and looking at the YouTube video, it's really difficult. So I went back where I thought I might have missed something and found that I still couldn't tell exactly who might have made a comment. So I would just ask that if you're going to speak, to please either allow your video or even identify yourself before you're speaking so that the person trying to take notes is able to gather that without always having to ask.
And thank you for doing such a complete job of doing the minutes. I don't want to be critical about them.
No. I don't take it critically at all.
Okay, okay.
And did anyone else have input about the last minutes?
I would move we accept them as they have been, what am I trying to say? Revised.
I'll second that. Terry here.
And that was Richard.
All in favor, please make your voice heard.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Our last little piece of nuts and bolts business is the 2022-23 meeting schedule. We need to just formally pass that as our meeting schedule. Again, in the agenda, you can follow the link. It's right there. Any more discussion about this? We have discussed this via email and in meetings. So I'm ready to say, let's rock and roll on this, but I want to make sure people have a chance to voice any more or last concerns. Anything else that we need to know?
I did run into the newsletter distributor person, and she said, yay, this is a very good schedule for them.
All right, that's good to hear. All right, with no concerns noted, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept.
I move we accept the calendar as submitted.
Second that, Richard.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? All right, the motion is passed. Great, so our next piece of business is the treasurer's report. So Richard, if you take it away.
All right, it was put into the documents for this meeting. Pretty much what we had for June, we had a submit our annual report to the state. We had to pay some garage sale and chip drop brigade expenses to Tamara. We did get a book sale, and we got a refund from the state from apparently overpaying our CT-12, which is a state requirement. And we got $600 from CNN for the healing event that is planned in the summer, and a piddling little bit of 59 cents in interest. So we have just over $13,500 in the exchequer, and that's my report.
Any questions or comments for Richard? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate that. Terry, would you like to give us a land use and transportation from CNN report?
Sure, I can.
Sorry, Terry. And those of you who don't know, CNN is the Central Northeast Neighborhood Association. It's kind of our umbrella association of Northeast neighborhood associations. Sorry about that, Terry.
Sure. We had a very good presentation on the Hollywood Hub, and it has changed. It is now a U-shaped building with approximately 200 or more units. They haven't got that far yet. There will be a lot of multi-bedroom units in there to attract families, but there's still only 40 parking places, which is going to create a problem. The Halsey 77 bus will retain its present routing, going over to Broadway on 42nd and coming back to Halsey on 47th, or the reverse in the other direction, to get to the Hollywood East there. There will be a turnout in front of the Hollywood Hub, enough for a standard bus and a bendable bus. I asked that question because I was concerned about the bendable bus, and there will be a signal will allow the buses to go to make a left-hand turn on the 42nd, the eastbound buses on 42nd to go with Halsey stopped. And then the stop for the westbound buses will actually be on 42nd, so it won't be blocking traffic on Halsey. And that was pretty much, that's probably the what I can say about it. That's the primary things. The land use committee will have probably the same presentation, our land use committee at the land use committee meeting. But that's my report.
Great. Questions for Terry?
Thank you, Terry.
You bet.
Hey, Terry, quick question for you. Did they give us a sense on, this is informative, it's good for us to know this. Are they looking for input? Are they looking just to educate?
A little of both. A little of both. You could certainly ask some questions. I asked the question regarding the original plan. It was a two building process, and had suggested the main floor kind of be open so that you could open it up in the summertime. And I asked that same question about this building, and there is going to be a community room, and there's going to be another events room or something, and one is just for the tenants, and the other one I think is will move the public. So you can ask questions and give ideas. One other quick comment: in the U shape, the courtyard is primarily going to be for the residents, with the walkway going up in front of the courtyard to go over the freeway and access the transit station.
Thanks, Terry. And I'm sorry, I should have clarified, just for those of you who are new to the conversation, this is the property just east of the Target, kind of across the street to the southeast of the Trader Joe's, if you were kind of trying to formulate where we were. Thank you,
Yeah,
Terry.
where the buses turn around now in the Max station there. It was put in when Max was and that property was available because that's where the old ramp off the freeway came off.
Great, thank you. Don, go ahead.
Is there a timeline for that?
If there is, I don't remember it. I apologize. It's a good question that we can ask at our land use and transportation meeting, because I believe we're going to have the same presentation, and there were about 3 or 4 people there. Like I say, they haven't really fully designed the building yet. That's still in how many units? 200 plus, but not exactly how many.
Okay.
Anything else, folks?
I'll just add that's a great addition of affordable housing units to the neighborhood. It's wonderful.
Great. Sharon.
Yeah, quick comment. This has been in the works for what, Terry, a couple of years now. And I think you had asked them to maybe be able to create a covered outdoor plaza for community events. Do you remember that?
Well, what I was asking for was they were going to have the main floor of the second building a community room, and my suggestion was that they have garage doors around it so it could be very much open air.
So it could
and
be
that's
open
kind of
air.
the suggestion I made for the smaller room that they are proposed for one of the other rooms that they're proposing. So that we could also serve for the people that are getting on and off light rail. Now there will be an area right off of Halsey Street where chances are you could probably have a couple of food carts and that sort of thing. They called it the Paseo or something. I know I'm pronouncing that wrong. Paseo, I think, is what they call it, kind of a patio area.
Yeah, okay, that'd be great if they had an open plaza somehow.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, thank you, Terry. Dawn, would you give us a report from the CNN board, please?
I was I wasn't out of state. Well, I was out of state last meeting, and so I missed the CNN meeting. I contacted Tamara and let her know that I wouldn't be available.
All right. Questions or comments for Dawn?
You know, my question here might be a good idea when Dawn's out of town to try to get somebody else to sit in for Dawn at the board meeting. Just temporary, because we actually have a second position on the board that could be filled as well on the CNN board.
Yep, thank you, Terry, for that recommendation. All right, our next agenda item is the Chip Drop Brigade. There was a couple of us who were able to make it to the event. For those of you who don't know, Tamara had led this event, and it was through a concern that we've had trees all around our neighborhood who are dying from some of our intense heat. And so she organized and led a event. It was wonderful. There were, I don't know, 20 plus people who came, members of the city park staff came, and we moved many yards of chips in Fraser Park to provide mulching for the trees in that park. The original dream was to do it in parks all over the neighborhood, but she went ahead and just started with that one. My sense of it was a great success. I wanted to ask, have we officially authorized the request for funds, Richard, from CNN?
Yes. No,
Okay.
we have not requested because I just got the bill last week. So I have not requested the funds to replenish that yet, no.
Okay, and it was Tamara's understanding that we needed to make a motion that just gives you the thumbs up to authorize the request for those funds. We had informally said that we would do that. So I would entertain a motion, unless there's some discussion around this, to go ahead and request for those reimbursement funds from CNN.
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Terry.
Starting July 1st, CNN started on their new budget, and were we asking for funds out of their, some of the remaining funds out of their old budget? As I recall, that's kind of what we discussed. And the second thing, which is germane but not exact, I was kind of under the understanding that the original chip drop was for people's parking strips, and I wondered where that went.
So I can answer the second one. Tamara definitely had a bigger dream than she was ready to bite off. And so the Fraser Park was a big success, but then decided not to pursue the, like you were mentioning, some of the other places. Richard, can you provide some clarity on the budget timing?
No, okay. I'm not sure about that. I do have the amount of $128.45, which was a lot less than was originally expected. And we do have a lot of water for our next event left over from that, which we would have to retrieve from Tamara. Okay. So we can use that at the concerts. Okay. So I think what we can do tonight, just as a board, is we can give Richard the approval to pursue those funds from CNN. So if anyone would like to make a motion to do that, I would really appreciate it.
Sorry, one last question.
Oh yeah.
So just understanding how this works. So we're requesting funds from CNN to, which is kind of the umbrella organization, right? To pay to whom?
To reimburse some of our expenses, yeah, for the event, you know, donuts and bagels and water and those types of things. So it's just a reimbursing. We've already spent the money and we'd plan to ask for reimbursement from the umbrella organization. Okay, because there was something in the letter about staff and overtime from the parks.
I have not seen anything regarding that. So my assumption is that has been taken care of.
Okay.
Richard, would you, if we give you the authority to seek those reimbursements, could you get a couple answers to those things, whether it's talking to Tamara or talking to Allison, just so we have a report for next month and make sure we know what we've done? Okay.
I can do that.
Any other questions before we take a motion? All right, I'd entertain a motion to authorize if anyone would like to make it.
Well, Zachary, I was just gonna second your motion. I feel like you put a motion on the table to give Richard that authority, and I'll second that.
Great, thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so moved. Hey, I really appreciate, Jennifer, you jumped on here. We've got a concert in the park. So for our new folks, Jennifer, would you give just a really quick broad overview of the concert in the parks? Tell us any of the schedule of events, publications, any participants, but also just roles, needs you have, those types of things.
Sure. Thanks, Zachary. So I've met many of you, but prior to so I recently just came off of 2 terms as the secretary of the board and also participated on the communications and events committees. So our what do I call it? Our trademark, I think, event that the neighborhood association puts on is a concert in the picnic in the park concert. So we had previously done this as a joint double event with Hollywood Neighborhood Association. They're going a different route, so we're doing this on our own. It's the 3rd Saturday of July every year, and so it will be July 23rd. You guys all put a circle on your calendar so that you can make sure that you attend. We usually have really good turnout from the neighborhood. This year we've engaged Little Queenie, which is a blues rock cover band, although they have some original stuff. They're very family friendly. They approached us last year, said we would really like to do this, and in engaging with different talent options, we decided to go with them. So they'll be our main featured event. And essentially they'll set up in Rose City Park, like by the tennis courts, and we'll use that hill by the playground as almost like an amphitheater. We usually have about 200 or so folks from the neighborhood bring lawn chairs, picnic blankets, etc. Set up. They eat, drink, be merry, listen to music, dance around, and it is just a lot of fun. And here's our chance to show a really positive impact that we make on the neighborhood. So we are able to put this event on because we got grant funds from CNN and the Office of Civic Life. They're helping to fund not just the talent, but also there's all kinds of fun things like permit fees and waste disposal. And so we're really gracious to have their funds. And the last thing that we need is some volunteers. So Richard has gotten us some new concert signs. So they just have the one date on it. So I'll be asking for some folks to help put those yard signs up throughout the neighborhood. We have some locations that have worked well for us. We're also going to need to post posters and some handbills out in areas so that we can advertise our event. We're also looking for volunteers to help us with setup, stage transport, tabling at the event, Pass the Hat, which is a fun collection that we use for additional activities. And then kind of the cleanup effort. So I've put together a sign up genius. I'll send out the link to the board list, and feel free to send that on to other friends and family. We'll also post that to our website and social media. We're probably, I mean, if everybody only did one thing, then we're probably looking at 30 positions, but often somebody does everything. What we'd like is not a repeat of last year where we had not very many volunteers, and Richard and I both pulled some pretty long days last year. So really encourage you, especially if you're on the board, to show up. You can wear your name tag and share some of the good things that we do. So it's always fun, and people are really appreciative. So that is that. The 23rd. Please come.
And we're really in need of somebody with a pickup truck to help transport the stage from up on the hill down to the park. And because the vehicle we used last year, I don't know if it's available, and I know I wasn't going to be driving it again because it was a very interesting day.
And I think maybe she's not here. Tayla maybe said that she might be available for that. So I'll probably connect with her separately. But if anybody has a truck or trailer, the stage is big. So this is not like I have a Suburban and you can open up the back. It is
No.
truck or trailer for sure. So yes, thank you.
Jennifer, when should we see that sign up? And you said we can share it with our neighbors, right?
Yep. So I will hit send on this email as soon as I pop off of here, and I'll ask Michelle. She'll probably have it posted to our website in the next day.
Okay. And if I'm hearing the number one thing, the to do for this board is get that sheet filled.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Any
I mean,
questions?
helping to publicize that will be really valuable to our community.
Jennifer and Richard, thank you. Any questions for them before Jennifer goes and gives a kiss to her kids? Good night.
Is Merrill raising his hand?
Yeah. I mean, is there a way to contact either of you just to find out what's needed, or?
So I'd like to try to do it through the Sign Up Genius, or you can send an email to events@rcpna.org.
Okay.
And that comes to Richard and I think a couple other folks.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, Jennifer, for coming by.
I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand on Zoom, so I raised it. I guess I had some concerns after last month's discussion about using someone else's pickup truck when a U-Haul is really not that expensive. We have a pickup truck. I'm certainly not willing to have it, beat up perhaps with the size of the stage, which sounds like, and I've seen them, they're fairly large. And it just seems to me that, if this is for our neighborhood and we have a fairly good budget, that it would be appropriate to go ahead and rent a U-Haul to haul something like that rather than risk someone else's equipment.
Thoughts on
Well,
that
I
from the
guess I'll
board?
respond to that since Jennifer's gone already. Yeah, if necessary, that's what we will end up doing.
What I'm hearing though, Richard, is that Holly's saying maybe as just a matter of course, as it's the right thing to do rather than if necessary. Is that what I'm hearing from you, Holly?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. We can check and see what we've got left in the budget, and if need be, we'll go beyond what we've received from Civic Life and CNN. We need to make this event happen.
To rent a U-Haul would take $50. They're very inexpensive for a 24-hour period and with basically no mileage being driven. Yeah. So I would like us to just go ahead as a board to approve that expense so that you don't have to feel like, I'm going over the budget. So are we comfortable as a board to just say, yep, thumbs up, Richard and Jennifer have our support to rent a U-Haul and we'll pay that expense?
I'm comfortable with it. What you might consider doing is, instead of a pickup, is renting a small box van. If you could measure the stage, it's probably easier to get the stage in and out of a low van than on top of a pickup.
Sure. Well, if that's the case, then I'm going to make a motion that we give Richard and Jennifer the green light to expend to get a U-Haul van so that there's no hesitation or worry or anxiety of making that happen. That's my motion. I'll stop there.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, so moved. Again, thank you, Richard, for leading that, and to Jennifer, who's taken off. All right, so we're going to move into new business. The first piece of new business is there was a grievance against the chairperson of the board, who was formerly Tamra. I'm going to share that for those of you who are unable to see it. I'm going to give you a link so that you can see it. Should be in the chat. So because it was against Tamra as the vice chair, I was the one who took the lead on resolving that grievance. Meryl and I have emailed and discussed over phone now that because the target of his grievance, which was Tamra, is no longer a member of our board, that the grievance no longer has standing. And so I also shared that when Tamra was still on the board, that my reading of the bylaws was that he was correct that the chair does not have the authority to nullify a previous vote. However, with Tamra's resignation in literally the last 12 hours or so, things are a little bit in flux. And so there are three ways this can resolve itself. The first way would be that Meryl would officially withdraw his grievance. The second way would be that Meryl would agree with my findings. I would submit the finding in writing to the board and it would be resolved. The third would be that Meryl disagrees with these findings, and then either he and I would need to work through and discuss further and find a mutual resolution, or I would need to, we would just have to respectfully disagree. I would submit a finding to the general membership for a vote, and that would be at the bylaws say it has to be at a general membership meeting. And the next one would be October 25th. So those are our three potential next steps. Happy to entertain questions, comments, thoughts, concerns. Meryl, I see you're here if you'd like to jump in. Terry, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I'm not
Don,
sure I kept up with those three, Zach, but based upon you saying that the chair doesn't have the authority to nullify a vote, I am willing to withdraw the grievance. And hopefully this will be the end of the situation at 62nd in Sacramento. absent a following of the recommendation that was made on April 5th, 2022.
Great, thank you, Meryl. And I'll just need it in writing and then we can formalize it and be good to go. Dawn, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I just, as I said, I missed this last month's meeting, but my understanding was that the vote was invalidated not because Tamara did so as the chair, but because there wasn't a legally constituted board since there were less than 11 members. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so that was her concern. And that's what triggered, in my conversations with her, that's what triggered her to make that statement and make that action and to put that on the agenda for tonight. When I went through the bylaws and had conversations with various people, that was not an option. It was my reading of it. Now, I didn't hire a lawyer to comb through bylaws and make a determination 100%, but that was my reading of it, and that there would have to be other mechanisms put into place other than just the chairperson kind of unilaterally making that statement.
Well, since we weren't a legally constituted board, it would seem to me that the vote had no standing, regardless of what Tamara decided to do that there was no standing because there was no board because we didn't have a legally constituted board.
I want to speak to that because the bylaws provide that any objections to actions of the neighborhood association have to be made in 45 days. And there was no objection made, Dawn, within the 45 days. So it can't be revisited at this point. So not only did Tamara not have the authority to nullify it, but the bylaws prohibit it from being revisited at this point.
Okay, but I'm just not clear that the board had the authority to take the vote in the first place because it wasn't legally constituted. So the vote had no standing because we didn't have a constituted board according to our bylaws, since we had fewer than 11 members.
Terry, I think you had your hand up first.
Yeah, so my question is what happens to the vote as far as moving forward? And, we've got people that weren't involved with original conversations on the board now and all of that sort of stuff. So, I mean, and it's a hot button issue. What happens? Where do we go from here? In other words, that's what I want to know.
And I think that's largely what Dawn is kind of suggesting too, is what is happened. I actually tried to get to the bottom of how long have we not had the statutory required number of members. Tamara estimated it potentially was up to 4 years that we did not have 11 board members. And I can tell you, I don't have an answer to that question. And I think it's actually a burden that we all now share as a board that is put together with enough members where we meet our statutory requirements. And it's probably a question that we need to have a conversation about. Sharon, I see your hands up.
Sorry. I wanted to make a comment that since January and February, there have been multiple meetings, whether it be of the board, special board meeting, or land use and transportation committee meetings, where we have taken minutes and approved them. And we just approved minutes from April. So that was a valid, you just made it and ensured it a valid meeting, even if you had minimum number or below the minimum number of board minutes or members, you just approved the minutes of the board meeting in April. And we've done that with the land use meeting. We have continued to have valid land use meetings, January, February, March, April. And that land use is a subcommittee of a board. So I would challenge that notion that just because you drop below the minimum, that invalidates everything. And I would find it very hard to believe that it's back 4 years that we haven't had the minimum, which is 11 board members in that period of time. We go up and down, up and down, up and down, but it certainly hasn't been below 11 for 4 years. No way.
Yeah, and you know this, I wasn't around for those 4 years, so I don't know. That's just the number that Tamara gave me. It probably is fairly immaterial unless we really went back and started to do some digging. Don, I don't know if your hand's up because you wanted to respond to Terry's question and Sharon's point there.
I want to say one more thing.
Just a second, Meryl. Don had his hand up, so I want to acknowledge him, and then we'll pop over to you, or maybe he's got his hand down now. Okay, hand down. Meryl, you're up.
Yeah.
Well, you just can't pick and choose. If you haven't had the number of board members for 4 years, you just can't pick and choose this one vote to invalidate. So I think if the board wanted to press ahead on this, I think it should be put to bed and rest, and let's just move on. But if the board wanted to press ahead, saying it wasn't a legal action, I would have to contest that.
To try and clarify where I'm coming from, if we send a letter to the city speaking as a neighborhood association, if we don't have a valid number of members according to our bylaws, then the city doesn't have to respond. It's just like a private citizen writing a letter. And so we really have no standing. I'm not on the land use committee. I was responding to the land use committee report and we had a discussion. But if that whole thing was invalid, I think now that we have a legal board, because we have more than 11 members, that it might be useful for the new members to have a layout of where the city was coming from, what they recommended, the concerns of our neighbors that live in that area. And this whole thing was about the neighborhood association writing their response to the city's plan. And if we're still going to do that, we should probably do that with a constitutional board that's aware of the issue and has heard from, our neighbors, as well as, what the city, they did what they did.
Andrew, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think Sharon's point was good in that, if the legal board, which I guess we are now, approve the minutes of the meeting, then that meeting gets validated in some way. That just seemed a point to be made there.
Terry?
Well, I'm kind of responding to Don a little bit. The outcome of what took place as far as the letter and everything was a compromise of what some of the issues that came up. And I think that you will hear that from the people that live on the street, that it was a compromise. And, not everybody's going to be 100% happy with it, but the 62nd in Sacramento thing actually was not on the city's agenda to start with. It was something that was brought up by a neighbor as a possibility, who later said he wished he hadn't brought it up. So I guess I agree that I think we should say this issue is over with, and let's move on to whatever the next issues are. That's my feeling at this point.
Sharon, I see your hand up.
Yes, I wanted to restate what Terry said. This was never the city's intent, and the city withdrew from were willing to withdraw from any consideration. It was an idea. That was it. They didn't come and say, this is what we're going to do. What say you? They didn't do that. It was an idea. It was to be a discussion, and end. And all of a sudden it took on a life of its own.
You know, one of the things that I want to, and Susan, I see your hand up. I just want to make a quick comment. You know, I want us to be thoughtful as a board here to really differentiate between two things happening here. You know, one is a very contentious conversation that happened over 6 months, and then, you know, whether the board is going to revisit or not revisit that. I mean, that's a question and a conversation, of course, that we can have. But I'm hearing Dawn's point is, it's been some years now. There wasn't enough members. Maybe it's been, 12 months, 18 months, 36 months, whatever it is. Dawn, I think, and I don't want to speak for you, so please do, jump in after this, that do we need to have a conversation about that as a board now that we do have enough members? And I think that's a great conversation. I just want to put that out there. I think that's a great conversation for us to have, because there were many more conversations and many more letters sent and many more activities taken than just this one that what people are passionate about. So I just want to differentiate between those two and just make sure people are aware. Susan, I see your hand up.
I'd just like to reiterate what, what Terry and Sharon have said. We've been talking about this for months. The idea that came up, I think it was in a meeting in November, and we've discussed it at every land use meeting and board meeting. We thought that we had a decision because the neighbors who are immediately impacted, who absolutely support the greenways and bike traffic and having lots of walkers in the neighborhood, we enjoy all of that. We came up with a compromise, and we thought that that was resolved, and now it's coming up again with a new board. And I really don't understand why we want to continue to do this. I think we've got other things that are more important for our neighborhood to continue focusing on.
John, go ahead.
I just want to say, because I've been gone for a while. I'm not sure, is the main concern about potential bollards at 62nd Avenue? Is that what people are concerned about, or is it the larger plan?
Yes.
Because I don't know anybody
Just
on
60
the
seconds.
board.
It's 60
Okay,
seconds.
I don't know anybody on the board that has said anything in favor of bollards at 62nd. And I think we still feel that way. It wasn't an original part of the city. It was brought up by somebody in the neighborhood. The city tried to accommodate. We heard a lot of people say that's not a good idea. And I think that we're all accepting of that. I don't see us revisiting that to see if that is a good idea or not, because I think everybody is comfortable with the fact that that's a bad idea.
No. No.
So,
well,
I'm seeing a lot of acrimony and a lot of people getting really upset. And if that is the issue, from the recommendations of the LUTAC committee, from the former board discussions, for the board members that were a part of that are still here, there's no movement on trying to revive that horse. It is pretty dead, and everybody's I think is happy with that piece being gone.
Well, I'd make a little point. I mean, just for full disclosure, I was supportive of the bollard, of course. That was public, very public. But I also would just make a point that, I'm not motioning to put this onto the agenda for the future or anything like that. My question more revolves around the greater question that you brought up around, do we need to explore past conversations? Can we learn from them? Can we learn from the last couple of years? Those kinds of questions. Susan, your hand's up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to have
that.
Oh,
sorry. Sharon, then.
Yep.
Yes, my hand was up. I'm shaking my head. Yes, Zach and I believe Kelly were in support of putting not only the crosswalk and the signage, but also these barriers there. And so I just wanted to clarify that it could just drop at this point, and the crosswalk is there. It's not a high traffic intersection. The signage is there. If something comes forth, I'm sure it could be revisited, and Mr. Schneider would probably be the first one to jump up and say this is a real safety hazard area, but it just isn't. The issue at 64th and Brzee, which you'll talk about later, of course, is still up. But I also wanted to say that the barrier at 92nd and Tillamook was hit again. It was knocked completely out of its triangle, completely out, with shattered pieces of car on the ground. I wrote to Scott Cohen at PBOT and said, look at this. They went and had it reset, and now it sits back in its triangle, and they have 2 orange cones sitting on top of it to increase the visibility. As I was there taking pictures, cars stopped me and told me how dangerous it was, and they just couldn't see the bollard in time. So please, 64th and Brzee is going to be complicated enough with the barriers that are going to be there. The one down at 72nd now has a nice bit of graffiti on it. Mr. Cohen said they would have it removed. It's very offensive, actually, graffiti. So we've got a big problem at 64th and Brzee that needs to get resolved. But
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify there were people in support, so I'm very nervous about revisiting 62nd for anything further.
So I want us to not deviate. I think we're deviating into the conversation of the pros and cons and whether or not these bollards are appropriate or not. And those are conversations we can have, but they're not germane to the topic at hand, which is the grievance and making sure that is we understand what our next steps are. So I just want to articulate that we aren't going to go rehash that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I've had a number of folks share, and that's great, but I want to make sure that there's other people on this board who may have some thoughts. I saw Nick, your hand was up. There's a number who have not shared kind of thoughts around the grievance process and resolution thereof.
I was just going to say pretty much what you said. It seems like we're getting off focus. You know, we shouldn't get back into debating bollards. It's the validity of protocol, votes, process.
So Susan, I see your hand up. I'm gonna have you hold for just a second though, because Andrew and Michelle haven't had a chance. So Andrew, if you would go ahead.
I think that just brings up the point of that was brought up last month of having a bylaws committee and reassessment of those and revising of those. And so, yeah, I think we should put that on the agenda maybe at some point in the near future of how to organize that and so forth.
Thank you. Michelle?
I just wanted to, I'm trying to put my video on, like had been asked. And this might be a deviation, I apologize. But it seems like there are 2 parts here. And one part is accepting the decisions, the previous decisions from the meetings of the past, and knowing that moving forward, you're going to be more aware of voting and the number of board members. If I'm correct, is that right?
I'd say that captures part of that conversation for sure. Yes.
Okay. And the second piece would be to that I'm hearing enough people say, is the situation at 62nd and Sacramento dead? Or is it something that is likely to pop back up again because of previous actions being legitimate or not legitimate?
Yep, I'm hearing those same thoughts.
Okay, I just want to make sure that, maybe we address both of those this evening and see if we can just come to a resolution of some sort.
Great, thank you. Ian, I see your hands up.
Well, yeah, and I'll start with just addressing the comment Michelle just made, and I'm looking at the bylaws here. Article 11, Section 1 very clearly says any person or group inside or outside the boundaries of the neighborhood association, which to me is literally anyone in the world, may propose in writing items for consideration and or recommendation to the board. So in my view, somebody can be a huge advocate for tree cover and bring that up for every single board meeting, right? Somebody can be a huge advocate for, some wacky idea and bring it up every board meeting. But I think it would be counter to the bylaws to say we are never talking about any given thing again, right? Certainly as private citizens, we can do what we want. And as a board, even a properly and newly constituted board, we can move something along in the future. So I recommend that if folks want to, right, propose agenda items, whether it's related to this one or not. So that's sort of the first general thought. The second is, in my view, I mean, the topic we're discussing here is the resolution of the grievance. Based on, I think, what Zachary said up front and what Meryl indicated, grievances resolved or mooted or withdrawn, however we want to frame it. And given the time, I recommend we move on to the next agenda item.
Susan, do you have something new to add specific, or could we go ahead and move on? Because I agree with you. We do need to make sure we're making progress on this agenda. Go ahead.
And I understand that. And I have a very brief comment I want to make for the new board members, because they haven't been involved in this situation. And the compromise that was agreed to was that a crosswalk would be placed across Sacramento at 62nd, and there are 2 supporting crosswalk signs. And that was the compromise that the immediate neighbors came up with. I just wanted to clarify that for the new board members.
Great, thank you. All right, so Meryl, you and we can touch base one more, offline and make a determination if you want to formally withdraw in writing, if you want to go my resolution route that I suggested.
Yeah, I'm good. I'll formally withdraw in writing. You said Tamara didn't have the authority as the chair to nullify it, and I'm good with that. And I think the consensus is we're not going to revisit this, and I guess we'll just see.
Okay. And then I'm also just hearing, and kind of like Andrew was just saying, it sounds like we need to have a conversation around bylaws. I want to echo that, and it was a very interesting process to kind of dive in through this process, and I think we need to formally put that on our agenda and have a committee and really dive in. And the second piece around that is totally escaping that I was going to share. It'll probably pop in my head in a little bit. Our next agenda item that we changed the agenda for this. So those of you who don't know, I received notification, the board received notification formally this morning that Tamara DeRitter is stepping down effective immediately about 10 a.m. this morning from her position. She sent a nice letter kind of explaining some of her thoughts and concerns and around health and around how things have gone the last few years. And I want to start by just acknowledging that the last few years have been really hard for everyone for lots of different reasons. And she was chairing an organization. That's hard. It was a big burden. There's a lot of weight on her shoulders. And I want to just publicly say I appreciate her doing that and trying to keep the ship afloat, which, a lot of ships sank in the last couple of years and it didn't here. So I want to just say that. The result is right now I'm chairing this meeting because the chair is not here. That's one of my jobs as the vice chair. But we need to have a conversation as a board to determine what's next. Ian is our secretary. He is the bylaws holder of the bylaws. So I've actually asked him to lead this conversation around what are our next steps to fill this chair position. Ian, can you take it away?
Sure. So I will just do a little bit of reading from the bylaws quickly. The first piece is a piece that Zachary just referenced there, which indicates the duties of the vice chairperson include performing the duties of the chairperson in the chairperson's absence and is authorized by the bylaws or regulations of the board. There is a bit more language about election of officers. I'm referring here to Article 7, Section 6. Officers shall be elected at the spring general meeting by majority vote. Chairperson, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer shall be elected, and the remainder at large. There is language as well on board vacancies. Section 4 of the same Article 7. The board may fill any vacancy on the board or committee by majority vote of the board. Again, just board members there. A member appointed to fill a vacancy shall serve the remainder of the unexpired term until his/her successor is elected. So that seems to indicate that there is no specific language about board vacancies for an officer. There is just general language about board vacancies for members, and it can be presumed that that applies then to the officer positions. So I'll just sort of offer up that information, see if there are any questions before offering any recommendation.
Meryl, or Susan, I see your hand up. Is that from the previous conversation? Okay, great. Meryl, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Ian is dead on, and I think section 4 may be a little bit ambiguous, but I do think it allows the board to fill the executive, the chairperson's position.
Ian, you had ended your statement with, you may have a recommendation or something like that. Did you have another statement to make or respond to Meryl on that?
Nope. Not in response to Meryl. Sorry, I was just trying to take notes as secretary, kind of balancing the dual duties here. So, nothing gives a time frame for the election of a new officer, or in this case, board chair, right? Which tells us that could happen at a general meeting or one of the board meetings. So I don't know if anybody wants to make a motion or a recommendation, but my sense is we should have a chair in place as soon as we possibly can, and that should be at probably our next meeting.
Terry, see your hand up there?
Yeah, he said it, Ian said it right at the last. I think we need to see who's interested. I don't think we should be rushing into this at this meeting anyway, and see who's interested in being in the chair. And hopefully there's maybe more than one person that's interested in being with the chair, and then we can, the board can decide who that would be. But I don't want to rush into this, because I just found out today, obviously, that people resigned, and it's not a situation where people want to rush into something. Let's give it some thought, at least until the next meeting, and maybe see who might be interested in holding the position.
Other comments, questions?
Just to remind the board, Tamara was also co-chair of the Land Use and Transportation Committee with me. And so her role is at least in two different areas.
And I will say the bylaws also indicate the chair is an ex officio member of every committee, right? So there's, even beyond what Kelly said, another layer of expectation of a chair.
Other Terry, I'm going to make sure the floor is open for just a second before you jump back in. Are there other comments from the board? Questions?
I have a question for Ian. Ian, does it indicate that anyone who fills in that position necessarily needs to be on the board before they fill that position?
There's an area where it's a bit ambiguous. So I'm trying to find there's election of board members in section 5 and then election of officers. It does not say that officers should be elected from the existing board.
Okay.
Right. So I guess maybe I'm potentially an example. I joined the board and then became secretary pretty quickly in like successive meetings. So the short answer is no, it doesn't.
Okay, thank you.
Terry, I know you want to jump in. I just want to make sure that I'm making sure that everyone's got a chance here. Anybody else want to jump in? Okay, Terry, what's up?
I was going to comment on her dual role, and I don't think Meryl has looked at the charter for the Land Use and Transportation Committee, but that also, I think, needs to be looked at with the bylaws when we look at the bylaws. There's some ambiguous between the charter and the bylaws, and the committees, in my view, are to get more people involved and not just board people, and the charter of the land use committee kind of doesn't say that. So that's my comment. I'll just leave it there.
Andrew?
Absent a chairperson, are you willing to stay vice chair and run meetings, Zachary?
I appreciate you asking. My wife appreciates you asking as well. I am happy to serve as the interim chair for the next month, if that's what Terry mentioned there. As I was processing, at work today, playing with my kids, and then getting ready for this meeting all in a few hours. I was thinking, what can I bring to the table to make sure that at least the transition is steady, and that's the thing I can bring right now. At least is I can be the interim chair for the acting. How about that chair for the next month, if that's what the board decides they'd like to do.
Okay, thank you. You're doing a great job. So,
thank you. All right, so I'm not seeing any more hands up. So is there anyone who would like to make a suggestion? I think we should, correct me if I'm wrong, we should probably take this in the form of a motion of what our action item is on this moving forward. Terry, I see your
I'll
hand
just
up.
make a motion here that the first step to replacing the chair should be finding out who is interested in being a chair. And because until we find out that, we don't know where we're going to go.
So that would be a motion to table the election of a new chair until the next board meeting, is what I'm hearing from you. I think that would be the official
I'll go along
terminology.
with that. Your wordings.
Okay, so then I'm hearing a motion from Terry to table the election of a new chair until the next meeting, and then with an asterisk that says it's our job to rustle the bushes, do a little looking at ourselves within and deciding if we're interested in serving and doing that in the next couple of weeks. Dawn, I see your hand though. So before that motion looks for a second, Dawn, why don't you jump on that?
Okay, I just, if it's okay with you, Terry, instead of saying it's a motion to not elect a chair at this meeting, which seems to be kind of where that is going for, since you're the chair now as interim, to solicit interest in a chair, and if there's interest, make that known to the board by the next meeting, and at the next meeting, if there's interest in chair, the election of a new chair will be made at that meeting. So we're putting off for one meeting.
Ian,
that's essentially what you're saying, Terry, right?
More or less, yeah. I'd like to see. I'd like to see maybe more than one candidate personally, but yes.
Okay. Ian, did you get that in your notes for a motion? Can you give us the verbiage on what we're moving here?
I have not heard a second for either one.
Yeah, I want to make sure Ian's got the verbiage for what that motion was. Can you put that before we look for a second?
Yep. What I have here is a motion to table the election of a new chair until the next meeting and explore interest in potential candidates.
Okay. So I have a motion on the table that Ian just said. Do I have a second?
I'll second that one, and then I see that Holly's been trying to get her hand up because she doesn't know how to put her hand up.
I'm sorry, Holly. Thank you,
okay.
Richard. I see Holly, your hand's up, and I also see Denise. So Holly, why don't you jump in, and then we'll get to Denise. And just as a point of information, what I have is a motion here to table. I've heard a second, but I want to hear Holly and discussion and Denise before we take a vote.
Yeah, I think I would make, not a motion, but I think that we need a formal process for people to express their interest. And I don't know, given some of our discussion around other elections, should that be to, either make that to you, Zachary, or if that's a conflict, then make it to CNN. I'm not sure how all of that works, but I think there needs to be a formal process so people go forward and say, I'm interested in a way that, is, I don't know, it just doesn't have any ramifications for those others that may be interested.
So I'm going to take a guess here that Allison Stoll, who's the CNN lead, would be willing to host those requests to be considered as board. And I agree with you, that makes sense that it should be someone outside of our group right now, since we're all kind of in a different pot here. So, okay, so thank you for that, Holly. And then Denise?
Yes, I was basically supporting exactly what Holly was saying, is I do think that there should be a better process for seeking out someone, but I wanted to recommend, if this hasn't been discussed already, is if there is some kind of description and expectations for the chair position, and be really clear about that. Because the more the person understands is taking on this job and the requirements and the time commitment and such, that's going to be a tip for success for this person. And maybe even, talking to former chairs, talking to board members, there should be some kind of process, either formal or informal, that's written down, not just asking if somebody is interested in the position, because I think that's really a loose, that's too loose. So anyways, I was supporting basically what Holly is saying.
Kelly, I hate to put you on the spot, my friend, but you are a former board chair. Tamara said she's available till August 4th. Would you be willing to work with Tamara to create a job description, for lack of a better word? There's stuff in the bylaws that talks about this specifically, but I imagine you and Tamara could do a good job of creating that.
I'm sure I could help.
Also, instead of reinventing the wheel, I'm sure that there are other neighborhood committees that have these kind of descriptions already drafted that we could, as a place to start. So I don't know if you're connected to any other neighborhood associations or any other, we shouldn't be starting from scratch on this. We might want to take from other neighborhoods that are more organized or have had to do this in the past.
Great. Thank you, Denise. Ian?
Yeah, thank you.
I want to just caution the group bordering on pushback on the expectation of any additional process. I think that process is open to bias. I think even the additional hurdle introduces bias into the conversation. I will just say that when I applied to be a member of the board, I was frankly a little bit put off by the requirement of a statement, and the biggest one for me was a picture. The bylaws are very clear in saying that any member may run for any vacant office simply by declaring his or her intention. And I think when we put, that literally means they can come to that next meeting and say, I'm interested in that, and not have to do anything else, not to have to have even read a thing. So we may want someone to read something, we may listen to their statement. I just think we should be very careful when we ask people to submit something or do extra work, because it does put a hurdle in place that is more difficult for certain populations, for folks with kids, for folks with reduced language access, and frankly, it's counter to our bylaws.
So let me just clarify, Ian, thank you for that. I wasn't actually saying we were requiring anybody to write anything or submit anything or, run for office. I was saying it would be on us to come up with the job description, if you will, or the position description, so that the person that would be taking this on would understand. So nothing like any kind of statement of any kind of picture or anything. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, Denise, I was more responding to, I think, Holly's. What I haven't noticed for Holly was a formal process for people to express interest.
I see.
It was less about we provide a job description to put to applicants, and more about we expect something from an applicant based on that. I think we should be careful there.
Okay.
Sharon, I see your hand up.
Yes, I just want to give some insight. I've been on the land use committee now for 7, perhaps 8 years. I'm a long-term member, and Kelly and Tamara, of course, worked together, and Ed Gorman worked together when he was co-chair of that committee. And as a committee member, we rely heavily on the chair and co-chair, and I'm sure in the board also, that you know what you're doing. That you've read the bylaws, you're familiar with them, your facile land use charter, those things. So it's not I mean, usually someone who goes into a position, they kind of work up to it. They might start as the treasurer and then go to secretary and sergeant at arms. And then, it's like you just don't run for president of the United States right at the beginning. You kind of work your way up so that you gain that knowledge and experience. And I rely on that as a committee member. So for whoever's going to throw their hat in the ring, we depend on you. That's all I can say. As a committee member, I depend on you. I can't be sitting and reading the bylaws and the charter and calling into question everything that has to be done. I rely that the processes are going as they're supposed to. Thanks.
Dawn?
Well, it seems to me like a way to move forward would be to perhaps take the duties as defined in the bylaws, post them to the website, send a copy to all the board members so that all the board members know exactly what is required. Anybody who is interested, submit their interest to Allison at CNN and have a vote next month of the people that have expressed interest. That seems like we can do that without, following the bylaws, not making any onerous conditions, and we can still have an election if there's interested parties by the next board meeting.
Thank you for outlining the sequence of events. That's what I was hearing as a recommendation, and you put it very nicely. We have a motion on the table that we've been discussing now about our next steps to table to the election till next month. We have a second of that. So if I'm gonna go ahead and take a vote. So all in favor, please indicate. All opposed? And any abstentions? Richard, I see a thumbs up. Thank you for that. All right. I appreciate the conversation. None of us had that on our radar as our next step tonight. So I appreciate everyone stepping up to the plate and being ready to have that conversation. Speaking of the board, our next agenda item is we have a petition to join the board from Merrill Schneider. And Ian, again, is our bylaw guy. I'm going to have him take it from here and walk us through what happens.
Sounds good. Thanks, Zachary. So the analysis isn't so different from what we just discussed. It's a little simpler though, because it isn't an officer position. It is a little quirky because it says the board may fill any vacancy on the board or committee by majority vote of the board. There could be an argument that a new vacancy hasn't necessarily come up, although I guess now Tamara's has. But given that we do not have the full 25 maximum number of folks on the board, it seems like there's nothing there to consider. I think the only consideration would be that if we were so strict that we only allowed new membership on the board at the spring membership meeting as set forth in the bylaws, and it seems like the vacancies clause gives us some flex there. So based on that, we would be eligible to choose a new member. And again, going back to what I just said, any member may run for any vacant office simply by declaring his or her intention.
You need a motion?
I see Dawn and I see Richard's hands up.
Well, a couple of things. I don't know if we've set the process to hold the election for chair at the next meeting. We might want to do that. The other thing is that in the 3 or 4 years that I've been on the board, historically speaking, if we haven't fulfilled the 25 member quota of the board, if somebody comes to the board meeting and expresses an interest, we have historically just held a vote to accept them as a new member of the board. So that's the way it's been done in my experience.
Thank you, Dawn. Richard, I saw your hand up.
Don said what I was going to say.
Okay. Terry, I see you indicating.
Do you need a motion to put Merrill, to accept Merrill on the board?
We
Do we get to say anything first, or?
Merrill, would you like to say something?
I think I'd be a good addition to the board. I'm a lawyer. Well, I'm more or less retired. Well, I'm totally retired, but I'd be happy to take on the bylaws. I'm just concerned about the neighborhood, and I think I'd be a good addition.
So back to my question, do we need a motion or do we just take a vote?
Well, we need a motion to take any vote, but I feel like we're in the discussion phase. If there's any additional
yeah, but we don't have a motion on the floor for the discussion. So if you're looking at Robert's Rules of Order, so I will make a motion to nominate Merrill for the board.
Okay, do we have a second?
And I will second.
Before I open up the vote, is there any discussion? So did I hear someone jump in? I actually do have a couple words that I'd like to share. Merrill indicated his interest to join the board, and I'm gonna just be totally open and honest. I'm not gonna bury the lead here, so to speak. And I'm just gonna tell you that, Merrill, I think we would really enjoy a football game together, or maybe going on a hike, or maybe sharing a beer with a nice view. But I am not going to vote in favor of your petition to join the board. I just want to be open and honest about that. I think it's important to explain a little bit why I came to this conclusion. And it's been a hard one because I've been thinking about it quite a bit after our conversation a couple of days ago. And I want to share a couple of those. We've been talking about it tonight, the 62nd and Sacramento conversation. There was quite a bit of contention. There were people like me, I was an advocate. There were a lot of parents that came by who stated their positions. There were people on the other side. Susan, you come to mind. Sarah came. Ben, who's not here, came, and they respectfully stated their positions. There were people who were having back and forth, and it was a place for discourse. But Merrill took a different path, and that really has struck me and has kind of hurt me as a neighbor, to be perfectly honest. A few months ago, he threatened a lawsuit formally against the RCPNA board if the baller recommendation was given to PBOT. A couple weeks ago, he doubled down again and threatened a lawsuit against the board again. He threatened a personal lawsuit against Tamra for $250,000. He threatened a personal lawsuit against me for $250,000 if he didn't get a result that he wanted from the grievance. Merrill, you threatened to run for the board unless you got what you wanted from the grievance. It didn't give me a sense that you wanted to serve on the board, but it was a threat to join the board if you didn't get what you wanted. That's how it was phrased in that email to me. You threatened to invalidate the board elections. And I think, Merrill, if you were concerned about the board and the integrity of the elections, you would have brought that up and said, hey, let's solve the problem here. But instead it was, I'm going to invalidate these board elections through a grievance if I don't get what I want. Again, it was a threat. And so I really struggled with that approach. It felt like it was a bullying tactic. It felt like an attacking tactic. And I see our role as the board here is trying to build up community. Sometimes we're not going to agree, and that's okay. We have respectful, robust conversations. Our association agreements, and I spoke about them at the very beginning of the meeting, were about working together, understanding, demonstrating care, et cetera. And for the 6 or 7 months that I've known you, Merrill, you've demonstrated on many times that your approach to get what you want has been to attack and to threaten. And again, I really do think we could probably enjoy a beer and a hike and a football game together. But I think that your approach is the opposite of what our association has stated it tries to achieve. And so you definitely have the right to do that 100%. So in the United States, you're free to take those actions. But that's not an approach that I can support. So I appreciate you showing up to all these meetings, Merrill. I appreciate that we have a difference of opinion, but I can't just kind of in good conscience vote in favor of you joining the board. And I appreciate you all being willing to hear me out.
I want to speak to that, Zach, because I had to push. You gave me no alternative to push. At the January meeting, you did some song and dance, and I don't want to be belligerent with you, but, and then at the last meeting in June, you said it has to come to a revote, and you're still in favor of the bollards, and I was trying to be in communication with you, you know, I was trying to get a response from you. And it was only after I sent the letter out to all the board members that I got any response. So, you know, I felt you put me in that position. I felt, you know, I had to file the grievance.
I agree, Merrill. I agree that you felt the need to file the grievance, but your sequence of events there was not accurate. You threatened a lawsuit long before I was involved. Yes, I'm in support of the bollards. I've been in support for many months, but that has not been, I didn't have anything to do with the revote that was supposedly on the agenda for this month that we've taken off. The idea that, Merrill, please let me finish. Merrill, please let me finish. Please let me finish. I was in constant email communication with you saying, hey, I need a couple more days. I need a couple more days. I have people I need to talk to. I had 60 days according to the bylaws, and you wouldn't give me 2 or 3 more days. And you did all the threatening of lawsuits while I was emailing with you literally on a daily basis. And so I just need to be really clear that, again, people can vote the way they want, but my experience with you has been threatening and bullying to try and get what you want. And that's, you're welcome to do that, my friend, but it's not someone that I can support.
Okay, it's fine, Zachary. It's not how I operate. It's only how I operate when I need to operate. You know, I'm a team player and I'm willing to listen. I do think I'd be a valuable addition to the board.
And I appreciate that. And I think maybe, I don't know what people are going to vote tonight. Maybe they will be, and we'll work together if you are voted in. But I needed to be very clear that has been my experience. Not knowing you for very long, but knowing you for long enough that is what I've seen. Michelle, I see your hand up.
I would like to say that I support Merrill being on the board, and I'm not comfortable with the discussion that just happened. And I would like to say that as being involved in these meetings has been a very interesting process. And I feel a little bit like I don't trust the board right now. And I want to be very clear on that. I don't trust that we're going to be able to walk away from this meeting and that something sneaky is not going to happen. And Merrill's been a longtime member in this neighborhood. And I think that he will be a good addition. And it's okay to have differences of opinion. I think that I felt like I wasn't listened to in all of the meetings that I've attended where I've been told that I could speak. I was then told that I couldn't speak. And so that's part of this thing. Like, I don't trust the board. I just don't trust them right now as a whole. And so I think that there needs to be a balance. And I feel like there's a large group who has not been listened to. This Rose City Neighborhood Association is supposed to represent all of us. And I feel like it doesn't. And so that's why I feel what Merrill did is that he got pushed into a corner and he supported all of us that weren't feeling heard. And I think that that's really important, is that it wasn't that, I don't know the sequence of events and I don't know what's happened in your conversations, but I know Merrill as my neighbor. He's my direct neighbor. And so we have a relationship because we live right next door to each other. So I really want it to be known that I support him and I support a difference of opinion. I don't support the direction that the board is going.
Thank you, Michelle. Terry?
I just wanted to say that being part of this conversation about the bollards and everything, I felt like the most impacted should be listened to, and they weren't. The most impacted being the people that are on Sacramento. That's who we should be representing first, not our own interest of something else, but the people that are going to be the most impacted by something that happens. And that's where I came from in trying to seek a compromise for Sacramento Street and listening to what the people had to say. And you know, if it was my house that was impacted, then you should be listening to me. My house is not being impacted by what's happening on Sacramento Street. So I think that's what we have to get to is the people that are impacted the most by whatever the issues come up. They need to be listened to very carefully of what they're saying. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Susan?
Thank you.
Oop, you're on mute, Susan.
Thank you. What I'd like to say right now is ouch on behalf of Merrill. I don't think that attack was warranted. I feel it came across as an attack, and I don't think that was appropriate. Not that Merrill needs me to say ouch on his behalf, but I want to. You know, this has been a long process. It shouldn't have been such a long process. People were collecting signatures in support of the bollard outside of our neighborhood, thinking that that would impact a vote, and that was not appropriate. I really feel that there has been no effort on behalf of the board to compromise. The neighbors didn't see any need for the crosswalk. This is not a busy street. That is not a busy intersection. We should be focusing, as I have said many times before, on the crash corridors where people are injured and killed, not on 62nd and Sacramento. But the neighbors, out of a desire to compromise, out of a desire not to feel like Washington, D.C., we said we would support a crosswalk at Sacramento and 62nd. That crosswalk was installed. 2 signs were put up, which do impact our views of Mount Hood, but we compromised in that way. And I wish that I saw the same desire, willingness to compromise on the board's behalf.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Any other folks before we go ahead and take I see Ian's hands up.
Well, thanks, Zachary. I wasn't really planning to say anything because I thought I had said my piece up front, but I will just sort of maybe represent the views of a newer board member and a newer member of the community. And I really sat down with the organizational and neighborhood agreements when I was thinking about this, and really centering listening for understanding and remaining respectfully engaged. And most importantly for me is willing to experience discomfort in difficult conversations, right? And for me, discomfort in difficult conversations means I can sit here and hear something else and recognize that, we're all pushing towards something and not react in a certain way. And again, I wasn't planning to bring this up, but I will say that as a new board member, last month being one of my first handful of meetings, I was shocked at the way that Merrill was interrupting and pushing so directly on the chair, even going so far as to say, I will file a grievance many times. It is fine to say one will file a grievance. The bylaws already indicate one can file a grievance. Nobody needs to say anything to file a grievance. I think what concerned me a little bit, right, and I was thinking to myself, wow, I just stepped up to be on the board and to be a secretary. What am I sort of getting myself into here? It can't be that it's this rancorous. And then I got an email from Merrill, and I'm just going to read from it, which again, this came on Tuesday. So what would that be? June 28th. Probably within days of having filed the grievance. Certainly not, I think the grievance was filed on maybe June 6th. So a few weeks, certainly not 60 days. And the part that concerned me the most is I'm going to read verbatim here. Quote, Just so that you are clear about how strongly I feel about this and how confident I am about my position, if there is a revote and if there is any change to the 4-5-22 recommendations, I will be filing a lawsuit in the circuit court for the county of Multnomah contesting the revote and changed recommendations. I've already drafted that lawsuit. It will take very little time to put it in final version. I was so shocked reading that email. Hearing Zachary say it out loud today sort of made me realize how shocked I was. But when I look at those neighborhood agreements, again, experiencing discomfort in difficult conversations and the pathways that we have, right? Discussion here, community building, bringing in outside groups, Robert's Rules of Order, all of that to move forward decisions, recognizing that the most impacted might not even be folks in this room, might not even be folks that live in our community, but that they should still be considered in terms of the conversations. When I think about all those things and I see someone saying, well, in addition to all of those, as a lawyer, I have the capacity and ability to draft a lawsuit and file it, that's super concerning to me. And so again, wasn't going to say anything, did not really know this would be a point of contention, but I would say as a new board member, that jumped up pretty quickly as bullying material and approaches. And I have a 4 and a 2-year-old, so I try to talk about this stuff all the time and the right way to treat people. And it didn't seem like that was happening in this case. And I guess I don't have a lot of confidence that that approach won't come up again in the future. So just some thoughts for consideration.
Dawn, I see your hand up.
Okay, here goes. You know, I've served on a lot of boards and a lot of councils. And I think when people get to know each other and you trust each other, you have a very collegial interaction. And when it gets acrimonious, you've got the bylaws. And I think that people that elicit interest in the neighborhood, that belong in the neighborhood, have every right to run for the board. Historically, anybody who's evinced an interest has been voted on and been accepted. And I think, you know, as a board member, somebody attacking me from the outside, I say, you don't know me. You don't know where we've been through. What hidden agenda do you think I have? I'm a neighbor like you. But I also think that I think different points of view are valuable in a board like this. And I think that once you're on the board, you have less of an outsider view of what your options are and what you're going to get, because now you're part of the problem. So I am certainly willing to vote for you, Merrill. I will say, being a member of this board for the last several years, be careful what you wish for. But if you want to come on here, I'll welcome you on the board.
Thank you.
Sharon?
Yes, I wanted to comment. There appear to be other lawyers that are currently on the board. So we all know about process. We have bylaws for a reason. You're exactly right, Mr. Levine. I have asked for years for a bylaws review, started the bylaws review. We didn't get very far, but I knew early on that we had a problem with the bylaws, but there is a process. And sometimes if the bylaws aren't filed or aren't followed, it does say you can file a grievance, do it. File the grievance. And if there's other avenues that are perfectly legitimate, we're a country of laws, we have court systems, we have judges, we have the ability to file a lawsuit. Anybody can do that. My husband was on the board for 17 years. I've now been on this committee for 7+ years. From my knowledge and experience, to not allow a volunteer to come on the board will be the first ever for anyone to be rejected. And there's an old saying, keep my enemies closer. If you see him as an enemy, you bring them into the tent and learn to work with them rather than rejecting them and pushing them away. That is going to make matters worse. You want to work together, work together. work through the process, get your documents in order, as I said last time, and then let's move on. And I depend on good board members to help me do what I do voluntarily. Thank you.
All right, I am not seeing other hands up. We have a motion and a second. So I'll go ahead and take it without any other discussion. I'll take a vote. All in favor of the motion to admit Merrill to the board, please say aye.
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 All right. And all opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Nay. And any abstentions? Can you get a count for us, Ian?
I counted 5 and 5, which is a push.
You have 11 here, 1 or 10 here. I thought we had 11 here. How did we get 5?
I see some more than 10.
Yeah. All right, we need to do that
Yeah.
again, folks. So let's go ahead and do just a.
And
let's go ahead.
do you want
and
to
do
have
a-
Sanjeev come back on the camera? There you go.
Why
Well,
don't we
I
go
want
ahead?
to make sure that only board members are voting as well. Is that the case?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and do that vote again. And if you could indicate with a physical gesture, then I'm going to give it a little bit longer so Ian can scroll through the videos and get the numbers there. So all in favor, go ahead and indicate with your hand. All right. You got
Sorry,
that, Ian?
so I have Terry, Kelly. Sorry, can you go up again? Okay, and Beth was the 6th I didn't have before.
Okay, all opposed, excuse me, all opposed say nay or indicate please with your hand. Tell me when you're ready there, Ian.
Well, so Denise is clapping and I can't quite tell if that's a no vote or just a reaction, but can we do opposed again?
Opposed one more time, sorry. I see Sanjeev, Nick, I see Holly, yourself, me, that's 5. And then do we have an abstention?
Yes.
Oh, we have one abstention. That gets us to 11.
Well, I think 12 though, because it was 6, 5, and 1.
Oh, did it pass 6, 5, 1?
In favor?
I was in favor. This is Denise. I'm in favor of Merrill. Sorry, I was getting a thumbs up. Gave it 3 times.
Yep. So in favor, I got Terry, Kelly, Don, Richard, Denise, Beth.
Okay, great.
And
so motion passes?
Assuming that everybody who voted are board members of the board and not general members, then yes.
Denise, are you a member?
No, I'm sorry. I'm not a board member. I didn't realize we were.
Okay, so that would take us 5-5-1. All right, bylaws experts, what happens in a tie here?
Motion does not pass.
Okay. So with that, then the motion does not pass 5-5-1. All right. It is 8:59, folks. We have a number of issues on our agenda that are going to have to be bumped in the interest of time. But I will, if there's, I'm just looking at the agenda. There's nothing that I think has to happen right this very moment. I appreciate everyone being here tonight. I appreciate everyone navigating an interesting time, bringing ideas to the table. And, I just want to acknowledge that it was a long night, and it was a long night made difficult under difficult situations with Tamara's resignation. So thank you for all stepping to the table. Thank you for bringing your eyes to the table and having a conversation. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor?
Richard, second. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, neighbors, sleep tight.
Good night.
Thank you, Zachary.
Bye.
Thanks, Zach.
Thanks, Don.